Okay, so in this video we're going to be combining all of the index laws together to answer questions that look like this. So let's look at some examples that pull all of these laws into one sort of question and see how it goes. Now if you haven't watched the previous ones of this playlist you might find this a little bit confusing, so let's see how it goes. Now I am trying to do 125 over 64 to the power of minus 2/3. I've done a little side note down here that minus 2/3 is equivalent to these three things here. We could say that it's minus 1 multiplied by a third multiplied by 2. I'll just quickly convince you of that. If I do minus 1, I multiply it by a third, minus 1 multiplied by a third multiplied by 2, it is minus 2/3. Okay, so I'm quite able to take minus 2/3 and split it up in this way. This is going to do a few different things. This minus 1, like I've set up here, the negative is going to take the reciprocal, which means we're going to flip it over. The third is going to do the cube root. And the 2 that we have is just going to do the power of 2. So let's think how that's going to work. And generally, I do it in this order. I normally do the negatives, then the denominators, then the numerators. So the negative, then the denominator, then the numerator. I'd say the numerator is the one that needs to be last. The negative and the denominator, you can kind of switch these two, but I would usually leave the numerator as the last thing. So the 125 over 64, that is the same as 125 over 64 to the power of minus 1. I'm going to need to move this across because I'm going to need some more space. And then it's that to the power of a third. And then it's the power of that to 2. Because the bracket law said that we can take these three things and multiply them together and it would be the same as 2/3. So let's do it one step at a time. You probably wouldn't do it in quite as much detail as I'm doing here eventually, but we're going to do this first one, which is the 125 over 64 to the power of minus 1. That power of minus 1 means we take the reciprocal to 64 over 125, and we've evaluated now the entire thing that's inside here in yellow. So we're just going to now be doing that to the power of a third, and that whole thing is going to be squared. So to the power of a third, that's from the denominator. That means we're going to be doing the cube root a power of a third. So I'm going to be doing the cube root of 64 over the cube root of 125, and that whole thing is going to be squared. The cube root of 64 is 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And the cube root of 125 is 5. So I have 4/5 squared. Now we know that this law says that the squaring applies to the 4 and the 5 at the same time. So you get 4 squared over 5 squared. So our answer is 16 over 25. We're going to just quickly check that that's right on the calculator by doing 125 over 64, close those brackets and do it to the power of minus 2/3. And we do get 16 over 25, which of course is 0.64 as a decimal. So let's just quickly annotate what happened here. To go from here, the power of minus 1, that did the reciprocal. And you can see that that reciprocal took place in this bit. Then we had the power of a third, which was the cube root. And you can see that that cube root took place here and here. And then the last one that we had was this squaring part that we've got here. And that's just your normal kind of squaring. And that squaring part took place in this ending where we squared the 4 and we squared the 5. So it's like a 3-step question, and it's always going to be 3 steps if there's a negative. That's going to do the reciprocal, that's going to be the cube root, and that's going to be the power, which is what I've got written in this little purple box as a reminder. So let's see if we can combine some of these things that we've got here into these 3 examples, and then you've got 3 that you're going to have a go at. So this is 27 over 8 to the power of 2/3. Now there's actually only 2 things going on this one, there's no reciprocal. So the 2/3 means that it's going to be the cube root, and it means it is going to be squaring. And you can do it in any order, but I think if you're going to try and find the cube root of 27 squared, rather than trying to do the cube root of 27 and squaring it, they'll give you the same answer, but this one's going to be a lot easier. So I am going to do, first of all, the cube root of 27 and the cube root of 8. Cube root of 27, still going to be squared, sorry. The cube root of 27 is 3, and the cube root of 8 is 2. So that 3 over 2 is being squared. We've done the cube root part, we're now going to do the squaring. 3 squared is 9, and 2 squared is 4. So our answer is 9 over 4. If it helps, we could have rewritten this bit at the beginning as 27 over 8 to the power of a third, and that whole thing is being squared. So let's do this 9 to the power of minus 3 over 2. Well, first of all, there's going to be a reciprocal because of the negative. Then there's going to be, for the 2 in the denominator, there's going to be a square root, and there's a 3 in the numerator, so it is going to be cubing. Now, I'll do the part in black down here, so it's actually 9 to the power of minus 1. I'm going to need more space. It's 9 to the power of minus 1 to the power of a half to the power of 3. Minus 1 times a half times 3 is minus 3 over 2, so that's why I'm doing the reciprocal, the square root, and then cubing. So when I take the reciprocal of 9, I get 1 over 9. Then I'm going to be doing that to the power of a half, and then I'm going to be cubing it. So when I do it to the power of a half, I'm going to take the square root of this. That's the square root of 1 and the square root of 9. The square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 9 is 3. So it's a third cubed. This thing that's here has just been replaced with a third. A third cubed, well, I can just do the 1 cubed and the 3 cubed. 1 cubed is 1 and 3 cubed is 27. So our answer is 1 over 27. I'll quickly show you that. I'm going to do 9 to the power of, why not do it as a decimal? Minus 3 over 2 is minus 1.5, and you get 1 over 27. So this 16 over 81 to the power of minus 0.75. I'd probably want to replace this minus 0.75 with minus 3/4. So this one is definitely going to have, there's going to be a reciprocal, there is going to be a fourth root for the denominator 4, and there's going to be a cubing. So if I want to do this a little bit quicker, if I take the reciprocal, so I get 81 over 16, and that's going to be to the power of a fourth, and then to cube. So I'll do the fourth root of 81, which is 3, the fourth root of 16, which is 2, and that's going to be cubed. 3 cubed is 27, and 2 cubed is 8. If you don't want to do it with all of this extra language, I guess you could sort of do it step by step and just tick off when you've done each of these things, as long as you end up with that 27 over 8. So pause the video, have a go at these 3 that you've got here, and see if you get the same answer as me. Okay, so 32 to the power of 3 over 5. No reciprocal needed here. It's just going to be the 5th root of 32 from that 5 in the denominator, and that's going to be cubed. The 5th root of 32 is 2, and when you cube that, 2 cubed is 8. Okay, this one, I'm going to want to replace that minus 1.5 in its fractional form, which is minus 3 over 2. So this is going to have a reciprocal. It's also going to have a square root. And it's going to have cubing because of the 3 in the numerator. So I'm going to start off by taking the reciprocal, so that'll be 16 over 9. And then it's going to be a square root, and then it's going to be cubing. So remember, you can square root the numerator and denominator. The square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 9 is 3. And I'm cubing it, so I'm now going to do 4 cubed, which is 64, and 3 cubed, which is 27. So 9 over 16 to the power of minus 1.5 is 64 over 27. If you wanted to, you could also do it all in one step. You could do the square root of 16, which is 4, and then you could cube it and go straight here. You could do the square root of 9, which is 3, and then cube it, which is 27. So this one, I'm not going to write it all out, but it's going to be a reciprocal for the negative, so it's going to be 27 over 1000. Then it's going to be to the power of a third, which is the cube root, and then it's going to be to the power of 4. So the cube root of 27 is 3, and the cube root of 1000 is 10. So it's going to be 3 over 10 to the power of 4. 3 to the power of 4 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, that's 81. And 10 to the power of 4 is got 10,000, it's got 4 zeros there. So you get 81 over 10,000. So these are your 3 answers for this question. Now in the next video, I'm going to do something a bit more challenging. I'm going to combine it with surds. So hopefully you've already studied the surds topic. Found this video helpful? Then why not drop it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd like the next video in the playlist, you can click here to be taken straight to it. And as always, wishing you the very best for all your studies.